Okay, I'm going to speak about the COM interfaces now. We've got on the master, there's three communication interfaces that you need to do. Meter, for meter communications, and the meter setup is probably the most important setup in the whole system. If you get the polarity of the CTs wrong, the system will completely do the opposite of what you had hoped, run up the electricity bill to extraordinarily high values, and make the end customer, make everybody unhappy. So do not do reverse polarity. Phase rotation, basically putting CT2 with voltages 1 in the pins for the meter. If you do things like that, also big mess, big problems. The inverters cannot charge and discharge correctly, and more than that, they will be detrimental to the electricity bill. They run it sky high. So don't do that either. The final one that's new on the S6 series of our inverters with grid imbalance injection is you need to have phase 1 matching with CT1, which is the same as RHIs and all our other series, but the phase 1 on our AC grid plug here needs to match phase 1 on the meter. Phase 2 on the meter needs to match phase 2 on here, and phase 3 needs to match. And if you have it set up incorrectly, when there's a load on phase 1 and the meter is seeing that on phase 1, if this is thinking that phase 1 is phase 2, it injects that power into phase 2, and it will cause it'll go to max power on each phase's input and export and never settle correctly. So again, run up the electricity bill, make an unstable system. So once you've set up the meter, very critical, you have your single cable running long distance. So generally you have your inverter installation maybe a little bit of a distance away from your meter connection, your grid input connection. You would set up your meter in the distribution box or as close to the distribution box, your meter grid connection as possible. The CTs must go on the grid connection, not the load circuit, not the inverter circuit, but the grid connection, generally the thickest cable on the installation. And the CT cable should be short with a maximum distance, I always like to say, is 10 meters. With the thinner, lower ampage CTs, you can achieve longer distances than that, but I always like to stick with the constraints of 10 meters, especially because you can have this meter cable, which is running RS485 Modbus at a baud rate of 9,600, up to 1 kilometer long, and that can be most of your distance that you make up. So put your meter on the grid connection in the distribution box, the main grid point connection, and then have a long cable running to your inverter, and then have that cable running into your port labeled meter on the master inverter. As I said previously, you do not need it on the slave. The master collects all the data and controls the slaves. Then the next connection you've got, as we did earlier, was the CAN communication. So this battery needs to speak to the master. You connect that up, and very important. So there's two interfaces between the battery and the inverter. Digital communications and power. And then the third interface we got here is the paralleling cable. So in the box you get this CAT cable, and it's 2 meters long, and you can use it in our scenario here with the two inverters very close together. This cable is perfect for us, but if your installation has the inverters 10 meters away from each other, 5 meters away, well, the limit is 100 meters away from each other, then you make up your own cable. And the cable is a straight 8 pins to 8 pins. So pin 1 to pin 1, pin 2 to pin 2, etc., all the way through to pins 8. If you hold them up together, you would see that the colors match on both connectors, going into this one, going into the slave. Now there's 2 parallel ports on each of our hybrids, PA and PB. It's not too important which one you use, but we do like to think of PA as out and PB as in. So on the master, I would go into PA, and then this cable going through to the slave, I would connect onto PB. The CAN communication cable that it's speaking. Remember, this slave inverter is speaking to its own battery, and the master speaks to its own battery. It's completely independent of each other. And that's all the COM interfaces.